من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين اللهم لا سهل إلا ما جعلته سهلا وأنت تجعل الحزن إذا شئت سهلا سهلا اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما وعملا متقبلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين وبعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. The scheduled topic for today is zakat, and the way we're going to do things today inshallah is a little bit different. So we're going to start talking about the zakat, but if anyone has questions about the zakat you can write it down and send it here and we'll answer it, so you can distribute to the back as well. And since it is Ramadan season, if anyone has questions about Siyam or Ramadan, also you can ask. So we're going to cover only two topics with the questions: Ramadan and its rules, and Zakah. Don't ask me about mortgage. And don't ask me about staying in a non-Muslim country's rules. And about divorce and iddah and all that stuff. So we're going to be very specific so we can cover the topic, inshallah. And as you know, the zakah is one of the most practical aspects of the rituals we do. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed this ummah with the zakah. And for those who did not listen to the lectures of on the benefits of zakah and the role of zakah in supporting economy, I think we have 4 lectures. They're already on YouTube on Shadow Creek Muslim Community channel. So those who did not subscribe to that channel, please subscribe to it, because most of what we do is going to be broadcasted there. And there are, Allahu A'lam, very beneficial lectures about what really it means to have the zakah. Something you didn't hear before, I promise. So when you listen to it, inshallah, you will benefit a lot. Bi'iznillahi ta'ala. So we're not going to cover that since this has been already covered. So we're going to talk about the practical aspects of the zakah. And the reason it shows this as part of Ramadan, a prep series, is it is the season of Ramadan that many people pay their zakah. This is not the sunnah. It is just an observation, the practice of people. They pay their zakah during Ramadan, seeking the multiplication of rewards. The practice of the companions, when would they pay their zakah? Many companions.
1 year?
Before Ramadan, in Sha'ban actually. So the poor and the needy people are, sufficient then, and people don't have to calculate their zakah, especially who have complex zakah formulas, so they don't have to worry about it in Ramadan. So they enter Ramadan and everything's clear. But for whatever reason, our observation has been that many people, subhanAllah, still do it in Ramadan, and it's okay, alhamdulillah. So we're going to talk about when the zakah should be paid, when and what is the threshold, the nisab, the conditions for the zakah, and different assets. We're not going to talk about the cattle zakah because that's complicated, and I don't think anyone is dealing with that. And the crops and the fruits also, we can answer it inshallah, but it doesn't seem this is the main issue that many people are dealing with. Everyone's dealing with cash flow here, right, with assets. So we will cover that inshallah. So what is the first condition of the zakah? The zakah is mandatory on every single individual Muslim, young or old, male or female, so long they possess, they own the nisab. The nisab is the lowest threshold of income or of assets that would make you qualify for the zakah. How much is that? That is assessed and valued based on silver and gold. Based on gold, it's about 85 grams of gold. How much the gram of gold today? Around 60 grams, $60. So 60 times 85 is in the neighborhood of $5,000. So that's according to the scholars. If someone owns that much money, let's say it's $5,000, this is in excess of your needs, meaning that you paid your bills, your invoices, your debt, and you will still have in excess of that $5,000, then you would qualify for the zakah, contingent on the second item that we're going to talk about. Some scholars says it is valued actually based on silver, and that is 595 grams of silver. And how much is the silver? It's about 60 cents. So that it brings this whole thing to about $350. And it is safer, Allahu A'lam, to play by the silver, because this way you're guaranteed that you fulfilled your duties to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you have to own the nisab, the threshold, and in order to make you self-sufficient, the ghani basically, you have to own it for an entire year. And when we're talking about the year in the zakah, all what we do, talk about the lunar calendar. So it has to be 12 Hijri month, okay? And the way you do that, you say, okay, I started owning, this $300, Muharram first, or Sha'ban first, or 16th of Rajab, and I maintained that nisab in my position for a whole year. If you do that for a whole year, then mashallah, you're by definition is ghani, right? This is the definition of ghani in the zakah concept. What is the definition of wealthy or ghani in American culture? The perception, most of people, the perception if you own more than $500,000. This is not the case in Islam. If you own $300 in excess to your basic needs and you paid your debt, then you are considered ghani. So then you have to pay the zakah. So how much is the zakah? As you know, on anything else besides the animals, the cattle, the crops, and the fruits, anything else, whether it is cash flow or assets, buildings, inventory you have, it's 2.5%, okay, of everything you have, excluding the basic things that are meant to be for use. Meaning your house that you live in is for use, that is excluded. Your car you drive to work, this is an exclusion. It does not qualify. It is not part of the pool of the zakatable income. Okay? If someone has a factory with machines, with equipment, all that stuff, that is what is for use. That is excluded. Is that clear? So, and the scholars divide, you have the currency, that's the cash flow, you have the gold, the silver, equivalent, metals, and then you have the assets that are for sale, urud al-tijara, that is real estate, properties, this is the merchandise that you own, and that is already available for sale. So how do you do that calculation? At the end of a year, you say, okay, what are my expenses are? You pay your expenses, your payroll, your invoices, utilities, all that stuff, debt included, right? And what is left over you multiply it by 2.5%, and that is your zakat. Is this clear? So, very simple formula, very simple method, inshallah, and that applies to everything. There are so many variances in zakat. Some people say this is how you do it, some people say this is how you do it. I'm just giving you the basic one that is accepted by the majority of the scholars, inshallah, and that would do it. Right? So now we can start taking questions. And the first question is?
The question I have is that you said that you pay your dues, and then whatever is left, then you calculate the zakat. So when you say you pay your dues, your mortgage or your car loan, whatever that is for that particular month or the entire next year, because you have savings that you're going to use for that, or how do you?
You can pay as much as you want, but you cannot deduct future debt from current assets. If someone has house payments, we're not going to talk which way you're saying, and we're not going to go detail whether it's halal mortgage or not. We're just going to say house payments, okay? So the house, you could have $500,000 in payments. So you cannot say, okay, I have $1 million sitting in the bank, take $500,000 away because that's future. We tell you, how much are you going to pay this year? You pay it. You can pay as much as you want. Whatever is left, then that is what's the zakat calculated based on.
So how much you going to pay upcoming year?
How are we going to pay now? Right? This is, you've owned the nisab for a whole year. I'm going to pay my zakat tomorrow. So I calculate what is the leftover, the balance after paying all my debts, including the mortgage, the cars, that. You don't calculate the future debt, right? That same rule applies to Hajj, by the way, because as we mentioned just recently, the Hajj is mandatory on everyone who's physically and financially capable, right? So someone tells you, I have a debt, for $1 million for house payment. Am I supposed to go Hajj? Say, okay, these scheduled payments that are amortized over, 15, 10 years, 30 years, don't qualify. Say, how much do you have left after your current payments? Al-hal. Is that clear? So if you have enough money to make Hajj after that, then you can do that. Good.
How do we calculate for retirement accounts or accounts that we don't have access to 60 or 65?
That's a very good question. So now we're talking real zakat contemporary issues. So the rule of thumb in zakah that any zakatable money has to be within your full control and you're able to do whatever you want to do with it now, right? Meaning, someone is in Syria, they have a bank account, $10,000, whatever amount of money in bank account, but it is inaccessible, right? You cannot pay zakat. Someone who's captive for whatever reason, incarcerated or whatever, they don't have access to their money, right? That is not zakatable money, right? With regard to the retirement accounts, 401k, pensions, all that stuff, this is the fatwa that AMJA, the American Muslim Jurist Assembly, has issued. That what does it take for you to have that amount of money within your control? If you want to tell them, okay, I want the money tomorrow, they tell you, okay, you're going to pay 10% penalty for early withdrawal, right? And you're going to have to pay the taxes. And the taxes approximately 30-35%, depending on your bracket, right? So they say that minus 40% or 50% in some cases, you pay money on the remainder, which is 60% to be on the safe side. Does that make sense? So this is the zakah on the retirement accounts is basically you pay on the 60%. There is a fatwa of the Imam Malik that since it is not within your control, you don't pay on it till it is, and after that you pay on whatever you get out. Allahu A'lam, the Amja fatwa is what is more relieving to the heart and more comforting and more cautious and safer. Clear? And that applies to many other accounts, student accounts, college funds, and same concept applies.
Can you give zakat to somebody has met his
Have what?
somebody who's met the minimum threshold? Can you give zakat to somebody like that?
So whom do we pay the zakat to? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala listed 8 categories in the Quran. Right? Al-fuqara wal-masakin. Al-fuqara is the one who's barely making it, meaning not, let's say approximately not meeting 50% of the basic needs of their lives. The miskin is over that, but he's always behind, less than 100%, always behind. So this is living paycheck to paycheck, basically. So for both, you can actually pay the zakat. Is that clear? Even if they're able to pay zakat themselves. So in some conditions, they can pay the zakat because a miskin might have $300 in savings, but then he needs a car for his daughter and a car for his wife and a new AC unit for the house and this and that. So you can pay him. So this is the beauty of the zakah. You can pay the zakah but still become a recipient of the zakah on the other hand. Yeah.
Sheikh, you said about asset or land that is up for sale. What if it is not up? What if you don't have an intention to sell it and it's in another country?
That's a very good question. So properties, you have to look about the intent of why you bought that property. If you bought it with an intention that I'm going to use it somehow, I'm just going to buy a property, a piece of land, because it's cheap now, in a rural area, in 10 years it's developed, I'll buy, my dream house for the kids, whatever. So this is for use, right? So the intent was for use. That is not zakatable. No matter how many properties, no matter how much land you own, it is not zakatable. Someone can own a house here in Pearland, a beach house in Galveston for use, another house in Pakistan, another house in Paris, and they just for use. Even if it's temporary, brief use, that is not zakatable. But you're gonna say, you know what, I'm gonna buy this land and it's gonna appreciate in 2-3 years, then it becomes zakatable because the intention was for investment, right? To sell it. In that case, it has to be zakatable. However, Imam Malik, this is again according to Imam Malik, he differentiates between the seller who's al-mudir, that he always buys and sells, always active in the market. And the one, the muhtakir, meaning the one that it just sits on it for 10-15 years, then they say it is okay. He needs only to pay after he sells. But the first one, the safer, if it was for intention to sell, it was retained, acquired for investment, then it is zakatable. Clear?
I love Imam Malik.
لولا الإمام مالك لكان المرء هالك. If it wasn't for Imam Malik, we would have been perished. This is the person who told him, your salah is not right according to Shafi'i. And he said, how about Hanafis? Not. How about Hanbali? He said, like, only according to Imam Malik, because he's the easiest when it comes to tahara. So he says, لولا الإمام مالك لكان المرء هالك. Is it obligatory to pay zakah every day of Ramadan? And if so, how much percentage every day? First, thank you so much for writing so clear. I like it when people write it clear so we can at least read the question. Jazakumullah khairan. So, the way you pay your zakah, once it is time to pay the zakah, you just pay it, one time, one sum. And you can take a few days where I want to transfer this to a bank account to this organization, but you shouldn't, do it in installments over the month of Ramadan. That is unnecessary. Okay, so you just do it when it's time for it. It doesn't have to be Ramadan, actually. As I mentioned, and I know this is the case of so many people. During Ramadan, you don't have time, especially for people who have complicated zakah formulas, to look over the books and do that. So you have to do it outside Ramadan. So the concept that people have to pay installments in Ramadan, that is incorrect. So you don't have to do it in Ramadan, and it doesn't have to be every day. I know there are a lot of organizations that are promoting this practice until you give a daily sadaqah in Ramadan before Laylatul Qadr. So, we encourage the sadaqah, but this is not the way to do it. Okay. Now, one other way, some people say, okay, how about, it's very difficult for me just to pay it one time. Can I pay it, let's say, my zakah qualifies in the Hijjah. Can I pay this month like $10,000, next month $5,000? Yes, you can pay throughout the year, but when it is time to finalize your zakah, you can reconcile and say, okay, I paid $70,000, there are $16,000 left, here's a check. If there is leftover, you're ahead, you can say, okay, I'm going to apply it for next year. And you can apply zakat for 2 years ahead, according to the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I hope this answered the question clearly.
So if you have loaned somebody money, you have not gotten back yet, but you still have to count it in a part of your assets, right?
So scholars differentiate between two types of money or loans. One that is likely to come back, this is you pay zakat on. And one that is most likely not going to come back, like most of the loans.
Bad debt.
Yeah.
What if you don't know?
What?
What if you do not know? Somebody promised you to return the money.
You pay the zakat to be on the safe side. There is no fatwa for Imam Malik here. You pay the zakat, and if it doesn't, come back, may Allah reward you. This is why they said, الدَّيْنُ ضَالٌ إِلَّا مَا رَدَّهُ اللَّهُ. The loan is lost, except for what Allah brings back. Yeah. What's next? Bismillah.
So, say one person asked something from me like,
How many checks have you gotten for zakat so far? I'm seeing questions but no checks. No, just joking.
so let's say a poor person want to buy, so ask me, so can you please make a small room for me? Then I found that whatever the zakat is coming a year, that is not sufficient. But if I make it 2 years for this year money and next year, then that may be sufficient. Can I hold this money for this year and give it to next year together to make his house? Understand my-
Can you repeat the question, please?
So, say one of my cousins told me, please make a house for me. small
Okay.
house." So I found that the zakat, whatever I have now for this year, that's not sufficient to build.
You need
this
2
house.
years zakah in
Yeah,
order.
2 years zakat.
Yeah.
Can I hold this zakat for this year, and next year I combine and give it to him to build the house?
So why not give him this zakah and he can hold it this year?
So I can give, but think that he can spend some other.
So you're afraid that he's gonna waste it. So normally under normal circumstances, one of the conditions of the zakah is what they call tamlik. You have to make the recipient possess it, own it, has full control over it. Unless there is a reason not to. Sometimes, if you want to go to a refugee camp and give them zakah, I mean, what are they going to do with the money, right? So you take their permission, okay, we're going to buy you, some consumables, whatever you need, your basic needs, your food, your hygiene stuff. In the case you mentioned, you give him the zakah, that's the safest thing, and have him give it back to you to hold it for him. If he approves it just to keep it, so then you can keep it as a loan. That's okay.
So if you want to give zakat to somebody and they are telling you that they are deserving or they fulfill the like the criteria that they can be paid the zakat, is it up to you that you have to confirm that they are really deserving, or like let's say somebody is in another country and they are just telling you, like as an old friend, that my condition is bad and if you can help me out, and is it up to you that you have to?
No, that's a very good question, Jazakallahu khairan. And it's a very practical question. You have to do your due diligence. And you have to make sure that the recipient really deserves it. And the way you do that, if you're going through an organization, they vet the person actually. Like for example, here in town, they ask for the tax records, to see exactly the income. They ask for the household income, the monthly expenses, how much you're paying for the car, to verify, because you cannot have your money go to waste, and you cannot have certain people take the money away from the people who deserve it the most. So you have to do your due diligence, and if, based on what you know, I mean, a lot of times you don't have the time to do it yourself, but the brother tells me, oh, I know this family, they're in need, then I trust him and give it to them, right? So in an ideal world, there has to be an organization, as we mentioned before. There has to be ZRS, Zakat Revenue Services, basically, to have a database for needy people, survey them, vet them, and see if they qualify or not. So if they qualify, according to what to your best knowledge, then you're exempted, inshallah, and Allah will accept. How should we set our intention when giving the zakah? How do we know 100%, or how do we 100% give for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Well, the Prophet ﷺ said, "Inna fil mali haqqan siwa zakah," that you have ownership rights to your money except the zakah. So that the zakah is not yours. So when you're giving it away, guess what? You don't have a choice. Okay? It does not belong to you. And they say, the scholars say, subhanAllah, that if the zakah money is mixed with non-zakah money, it will destroy it. It's just like a fuel for it. And one day it will make it perish, subhanAllah. This is how serious it is. So when you're giving the zakah, Always remember what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said. وَأَنْفِقُوا مِمَّا جَعَلَكُمْ مُسْتَخْلَفِينَ فِيهِ. Spend and pay from what Allah has made you a custodian and a guardian of. Always feel anything you own, you possess, is not yours. It is Allah, and you're only a custodian. Okay, you only have the checkbook. Knowing that you're not the owner, it is Allah who's the true owner. This is how you purify your niyyah. And you make sure, again, remembering that this money, the 2.5% does not belong to you. And you have to be thankful to the needy people that they're accepting it on your behalf. Okay? Knowing this, you know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Raqib and will make you, inshallah, purify your intention.
Sort of follow up on this question. In terms of hasanat, if I pay, 10 years ago, $500 versus now paying $10,000, for example, in terms of hasanat, is that the same, considered the same, or if you pay more, hasanat increase from a zakat perspective?
I'm not sure if I understood.
So, for example, sadaqah, the more you give, I think the more hasanat you get from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Does that also apply for zakat? I mean, it's 2.5%, but let's say the amount, the sum of money you're paying is more. Is the hasanat also increased?
Yes, of course. So the hasanat, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will multiply to 700 and even more based on the niyyah. The more sincere you are, the more loving. Some people are giving the zakah, it's like as if you're taking it out of their teeth, they're clenching on it. And some people, they give it and they're thankful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Alhamdulillah for giving me this opportunity to worship Him, to make someone happy, to alleviate the pain and suffering of people. So see that there's a difference. And the more iman and taqwa a person has, the more reward they will have. And obviously, the more money you give, the more hasanat you will give.
Okay.
The same thing, if someone's supposed to pay $5,000 zakat, he paid $10,000. Would the extra $5,000 consider sadaqah or zakat?
The extra is considered sadaqah because zakat, what's in your dhimma, is the $5,000. Yeah. We have to diversify the portfolio.
Okay, and your primary residence, or if you have a business owned, it's eligible for zakah, and you can do zakah in your home. It's a private residence.
Your residence is not zakatable. You don't have to pay zakah on what you use as a primary residence, on your car, on your whatever.
Let's say you have money sitting in your account, saving account, over than a year. That's you have to do zakat.
If it's over $300, then it is zakatable. Then you sum it up all and you pay the zakat on the total sum. Next.
If you have a property and you are renting it, do you have to pay zakat on both the rent you are getting and also the price of the property?
Jazakallah khairan. This is a very good practical question. This is what they call the zakat al-mustaqillat, invested properties. You only pay the zakat on the revenue collected, and you don't pay zakat on the value of the property itself.
I just wanted to ask, this is not a very bad question, but why was zakat not applicable to the family of Prophet Muhammad?
Yeah, the Prophet ﷺ did mention that it is basically the dirt of people. This is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgives them their sins, and the chastity of the household of the Prophet ﷺ and nobility that they would prevent from taking it.
So does this apply to the current time also? Because a lot of people say we are from the family of...
Right. The contemporary fatwa that it doesn't apply, because who's going to feed these people? When they used to take from the khumus, from the fifth, وَعْلَمُوا أَنَّمَا غَنِمْتُمْ, يعني from the ghanima, yes, they were sufficient and wealthy, But now I know tons of these people who are needy cannot find, enough sustenance. So you give them the zakat unless the government, supports them.
Last question, I'm done. Do you have to tell the person this is zakat money?
Jazakallahu khairan. The answer is no, you don't have to tell them that this is zakat money because you don't want to break their hearts twice.
Do I have full choice of where I give my zakat, or is there a preference in terms of, for example, location, people, country?
That's a very good question. So, in a sense, remember this rule. This is the golden rule in zakat. They say al-fitra, zakatul fitr, zakatul nafs, tudfa'u haythu kanat al-nafs. So for fitra, wherever you are, you pay your fitra. That's better. For zakatul mal, it is what? Zakatul mal, where the money is. So it's better to pay the zakat of that money where that money is. But the scholar said if there is a valid need, then you can transfer it to where it is more beneficial. Such as, if you want to pay $5,000 here, in Houston to someone, that's good. If there is a need, we have to make sure our community is obviously sufficient and their needs are fulfilled. But that $5,000, send it to somewhere in an earthquake area, that you can save so many lives. So this is why you have to see where it is more needed, right? Where it is more needed, it is more rewarded, inshallah. And then the other question, which no one asked, that should we pay only to the fuqara and masakeen, or does it have to include all the 8 categories? Some scholars say it's better actually to divide it, but some people say no, al-fuqara and al-masakeen take a priority. And all these things, alhamdulillah, we have room to navigate and whittle. You can do whichever is more beneficial. Common sense.
Can you pay zakat to your family man?
Very good question. You cannot pay your zakat to your parents and their higher-ups, meaning grandparents, and to your children as low as it goes, meaning grandchildren. Vertical, you cannot pay. Horizontal, laterally, meaning to your siblings, to your cousins, to your wife's family, it's okay. You cannot pay your wife a zakah because you're responsible for her. She can't pay you zakah. It's a good deal. So, does that answer the question? There are small exceptions, but we're not going to go there because that makes it very kind of complicated. It's too profound.
One more question. Once you pay your zakat and later you find out the person who received the zakat was not a recipient or not a qualified zakat recipient, then what, you have to pay it again?
If it's at the time, some scholars say you have to pay again, but we'll go with the easier opinion that once you pay it, bari'at dimmatuka at that time. That's why don't go dig after them. You might find out a lot of stuff.
I have 2 questions. First, for zakat al-fitr, is it possible to pay it before Ramadan if you think that it's going to help more to the recipient?
Zakat al-fitr does not commence in its obligation. It is wajib till Ramadan comes. So some scholars say that you can only pay it in the last day of Ramadan actually. We'll go by the easy madhab that you can pay it early Ramadan, that's fine. Before Ramadan, you cannot do that. Unless you want to deposit it with an organization and tell them, okay, when Ramadan comes, you pay it, that happens. But you cannot go into a needy person and give him, okay, here's my sadaqah, because it's Ramadan has not commenced yet.
Then my second question was regarding you said if you have properties or a vehicle that you use, it doesn't go towards the calculation. For the sisters, if there's jewelry or gold that they use for everyday purpose, does
Yes.
that apply?
Jazakallah khairan. I'm glad someone asked this question. According to the majority of the scholars, there is no zakah on jewelry, no matter how big it is. According to the Hanafi, and this is one of the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, that yes, there is zakah. So you can choose whichever you want to do, and both are acceptable, inshallah.
So there is no zakah on jewelry?
Surprise.
But that's gold.
The jewelry is for use. Anything is for use is not zakatable.
But if there's a lot of jewelry for you,
That's, this is why some scholars say if it's within the common law norm, then it is okay. If it is in excess, But truly, if it's for use, no matter how small or big it is not zakatable. This is madhab al-jumhur. This is the majority of the scholars. The only people who say it is zakatable is the Hanafi. We respect that. Al-ayn wal-ras. We'll never say no to any dollar that comes to our zakah box.
so you don't calculate the jewelry, that gold equivalent.
I don't include jewelry in the zakah calculations.
You're my sheikh, inshallah.
Only with the easy stuff for the shaykh. Bismillah.
This is, I guess, more philosophical, but the fact that there's no zakat on things that are in use, like business, and can that be seen as an encouragement to spend in business and invest as opposed to just hoarding cash, or is that just the tax?
So there's the concept of tax evasion, right? And zakah evasion. So at the end of the day, Allah knows your intention. And Allah will reward you basically on the intention. If someone wants to buy a $2 million house in order to evade zakah, it is allowable, right? And so long it is permissible, it is okay.
But I mean, like a business, something that's contributing to society, like even like from a tax point of view, like you encourage investment as opposed to everyone just sitting at home with cash. So I'm just like understanding, like at the time, was it like, maybe there was an issue with people not investing back in the community? Is there some sort of back?
I think you have to go and listen to my 4 lectures on this topic. You'll learn that, inshallah. This is exactly what those lectures address. Last 2 questions.
So for the zakat, do you calculate up till the day before you pay?
Yes, on the day of, yeah.
You have to fix a date every
Yes.
year, like March 1st you're paying, so March 1st.
No, not March. Muharram first, Rajab first, because it has to be a lunar calendar. Yeah.
Talking to the business perspective, I guess the inventory of the stuff that you have to still pay zakat on it. Yeah, you don't pay for
Correct.
what you use, but if you have inventory or you have an account receivable that's not coming yet.
Correct. So you pay on the inventory. That's very important. You don't pay on the computers you use, on the storage, whatever you use. But on the inventory itself, you have to pay. On the merchandise, you have to pay, basically.
But merchandise keep changing, right? The amount of inventory, so the day you have.
Yeah. The day of, you see, okay, what's the fair market value for it now? And what do I have? It's very easy. Now you have, computers that generate exactly what you have. That's why the easiest thing to make the easy, don't own too much. Keep it easy and simple. And the people who would stay the longest for hisab in the day of judgment, who are the people who own the most money. So there is, the bookkeeping and the audit and all that stuff has to come up. Any last question?
So if you have the inventory and all that, is very complicated to have it in a book. Can you lump sum it, but just make sure it's over than what you think it is?
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. You can estimate, so long you know it's above, it's okay.
You said that the nisab is calculated based on the amount of gold and silver. So people used to have gold and silver other than jewelry?
They were close. Yeah, the coins, That's the dinar was a gold basically, and the dirham was silver. جزاكم الله خيرا وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآله والحمد لله رب العالمين.
Very, very helpful.